Beverly Crusher began an analysis today of the respiratory problems being experienced on the beta moon of Pellier-Zell. Wesley Crusher is the top of his class in exobiology, but he's still struggling in ancient philosophies, and those who cannot hear an angry shout may strain to hear a whisper. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4, Episode 23, The Host, written by Michel Horvat, or if you pronounce it the French way, Michel Horvat. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, though. Directed by Marvin V. Rush. This was May 11th, 1991. Where were you, and how are you, Sirach?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I thought it was Michael. You say Michelle. I was like, oh, excuse me. My notes were off.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's spelled is the French way, which is pronounced Michel. And then the last name, you don't pronounce the H at the beginning of a word. You don't pronounce the T at the end of a word. So if the T is at the end of the word, then it's silent.
Silent.
Yeah. So it's probably Horvat. I don't know, but I don't know if he was American born. But anyway.
Okay.
So everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening, and give us a 5-star rating and a nice review, we'd really appreciate that. And visit us on patreon.com/the7th rule to be part of the fun and part of the team. Sirach, You know why I thought of you on this episode. And I've been thinking about this episode for a long time and never once saying anything, because I know that the second they said the word Trill, you were like, what?
Yeah. I put a question mark by it. Like, did I hear that? I guess this is where the Trill come from. One of the things I think I'm commonly looking for is those spots.
Yeah.
And I think they may have done that later on. Is that what they did? Later on, they decided that those spots would be part of the Trill.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know the whole story of it, but I will say that as far as I know, this look of Trill was only in one episode, and it's this one. And then we never see the Trill again for the rest of Next Generation. And then the Trill were reintroduced as Jadzia Dax in the first episode of Deep Space Nine, or second. And she now has spots instead of forehead pieces. So my guess, and I could be way off on this, and I'm sure we could look this up, or people in the free-for-all could tell us. My guess is just that they're like, hey, we want her to be pretty. Or, so maybe it was either an aesthetic thing of we want her to be pretty, so let's just give her spots instead of some weird thing on her head. Or it was just a practical thing, which is like, drawing spots won't take as long as adding these prosthetics, but I don't really know, because those spots took like probably an hour and a half or something. I don't know. It's my guesses.
Yeah, they both sound valid to me. They especially when you talk about you want one of the lead to be who is as beautiful as Terry is, you probably don't want to, impose or stop that beauty from having its full capability of shining. So the spots were more complimentary for her face and, the look as far as attractiveness is concerned. And you in canon, I'm sure you can explain this other kind of Trill in different ways. Like
Totally.
you could say, oh, this is this particular race of people that were hosting the Trill at that period of time, and such, that it's not representative of all the Trill, or who knows what kinds of explanations can be used. But those were the big things for me. Like, where are those spots?
Yeah, and I'm looking it up right now from our good friends over at ScreenRant.com. They say that, it was makeup. The executives at Paramount disliked the look of the forehead prosthetic on Terry Farrell, the actress playing Jadzia Dax. Makeup artist Michael Westmore attempted to create less and less bulky prosthetics for Farrell to wear, but was eventually forced back to the drawing board entirely when the studio insisted they didn't want any prosthetics on her head. Okay. So it wasn't like a decision they made from the very beginning. It was just that they put it on her looking like that, and they said, no, that doesn't look good. Make it smaller. Make it smaller. And then finally they're like, start over. So he drew spots,
Give
and they
her
said,
something else.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think they made the right choice, because to me that's more synonymous with the Trill, and that's, visually more attractive. It's just great in general. The look is better.
And it's different. There are a million aliens that
Yeah,
just have something on their forehead.
exactly. I was good with it. Um, so yeah, there were some things that I enjoyed about this episode. For one, the focusing on Dr. Crusher and just her personal life. I thought that's good to expand upon, because we only see her in a professional capacity. So for her to have some romance and some other kind of interest in her life, I'm into that. They also gave Wesley a Nam with the whole, getting letters from him and finding out that he's in exobiology, doing well. Surprisingly, not so good at history, but that's Wes. Um, but I like the slice of life type stuff from her. But there were some issues that I had with the episode in general. That just were like,
There were
you
a
know,
few. There were a few.
there were pieces.
Let's finish off on the Trill stuff too, because before we get into that full story thing, something I noticed in watching this episode that I didn't notice, when I watched it, however, 20 years ago or something like that, was not just how different the Trill looked, but the lore behind it. Like this guy, Odon, was basically like the identity was 100% the symbiont, not the carcass around it, right? Whereas Jadzia, they flip-flopped it, where it's like the identity is 90% Jadzia with just the memories of the symbiont, the wisdom of the symbiont, but the host is the person. That's why when we got Esri Dax, she didn't act exactly like Jadzia. She was a completely different person, but just with the memories of the symbiont, including Jadzia. So that's a complete reversal of this, where basically they were saying that the symbiont is 100% this guy, and then all this is just the shell, is just the makeup around it, because when he died, then it's just kind of like, hey, Beverly, if you love this guy, you're going to love Riker, because it's the exact same person in a different shell. And I ask you,
Yeah.
Sirach, if you had the love of your life and she just flipped into a different body, would you immediately be like, oh, this sucks, but okay, let's make out real quick?
Uh, yeah, no, I would have the same kind of questions that Beverly had in this episode. Probably a little bit of resistance for sure.
But she did make out
Because
with Riker pretty quick.
she did, yeah. She was convinced, but then, but then that leads me to a whole bunch of other questions. But there is a part of the physical memory that's attached also to the spiritual, emotional memory. So while that person may be the same person, it would take some getting used to in order to um, remove the visual, obstacles to perceiving that person as that same person. So that takes, I would imagine, a little bit of training on the brain. You'd have to have some conversations. There would have to be reassurances for me that this is like, I'd be like, basically during the course of conversation, it would be revealed to me by the things that they talk about and the subject matter, that this is the exact same person that I'm dealing with, right? So if it was like my mom, for example, she would talk to me the way my mom talks to me, like normally, right? There would be, and after a while, I would be like, okay, I think this is my mom, because
But there would still be some adjustment period, right? Like even if
it
your
has to be.
mom was in a completely different body, like it would
Yeah,
still be very weird and off-putting and disconcerting. You'd be like, I like you, I still want you around, but this is a little weird. And by the way,
yeah, Especially if they're not the exact same age, too, right? So you expect your mom to be older.
What if she's 25 now all of a sudden?
Yeah, and she's like, "I'm your mom," and you're like, it wouldn't be that easy to just instantly adapt. That's you'd have to train your brain, and through a conversation, I'd have to be convinced. It wouldn't just be automatic.
Yeah, and jumping on that also, you would definitely need some time, because I'm going to say something that may not be a popular thing to say, but she also has to rule out the possibility that Riker's just being like, "Oh yeah, totally. No, I'm just O'Don. I'm just the guy you fell in love with." I mean, like, it's Riker's gone. It's totally not even me. Hey, it's me. I'm the guy that you felt. Come here, you. You know, you never know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Riker, you never know. Riker might just be like, "Hey, this is my chance." And then when the slug is out of me, he's back to like, "Oh, Deanna, I don't even remember what happened. That wasn't me. That was the thing inside of me. You and me were still good, right?" You never know.
Yeah. Well, guys say that without a thing inside of them. But that wasn't me. So it's funny that you say that, because I was thinking along those same lines that other people would be wanting to sign up for that job, right? It's like, Riker, we're gonna have to extract it from Riker, and there's a 9-hour gap. I can see somebody like LaForge, like Geordi, saying, "Hey, I'll."
And then they all turn and go, "Geordi." No, but Beverly. Beverly would be like,
"Say, what about me?" And you're like, "No, not you, Worf."
Beverly would be like, "Can I pick? Because if so, I want Picard."
Yeah.
He's like, "Jean-Luc, I choose you." So just for professional reasons, of course.
Exactly.
Beverly, what are you talking about? I'm the captain.
Can you see the lineup of Starfleet just waiting outside the medical office, waiting for their turn to get their Trill?
Barclay's first in line, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought about that too. That was what kind of freaked me out about this episode a little bit. Because it had to be Riker, right? I was like, "Oh, here we go." Riker.
Of course.
Jeez. Like, I was like, is Riker writing this show? Because he's really getting that must be like a pseudonym for him or something. That's not. This is him writing these episodes. He's like, "Hey, how do I write another way to get laid? Let's see. What if I had a little thing inside of me?" It's too convenient for his character.
Yeah, that's true. He's like, "Well, what about this? What about she falls in love?" He's like, I want Riker to hump Crusher." And they're like, "Well, no, she likes Jean-Luc, and plus other guys, plus Riker likes Troy and other people." Like, just enough. Well, what about if Beverly falls in love with the guy, but then it's really the slug inside of him, and the slug gets placed up inside of me? And so then technically she has to love me and kiss me and stuff, because it's the same, right? It's like she has
to. That's how the pitch went. That's how the pitch. But they were like, "Sold. We'll take it." Yeah, that was kind of it goes back to the thing that you've said before about falling in love in one episode. Remember how we've talked about this many times? Now, they made it look like we just kind of cruised in on focus on 2 weeks worth of passing by or whatever.
Which is easier to swallow.
But the last time, it's easier to swallow, because it's like, well, some time has passed. We don't know what kind of dates they've been on or whatnot prior to this. So right away, I'm looking at this guy, how, your parents look at you when you bring home somebody, like, "Look, you like her?" And they're like, "Let me see if I like this person or not." And then they start going through the whole checklist of, is this person good enough for, in this case, Beverly?
Yeah.
And so that was my initial reaction as I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, what does she see in this wrinklehead guy?
Yeah, get a haircut before you date our Beverly.
Yeah.
What do you do for a living? I don't know.
Yeah. How old are you even?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
some
you
real
look a little.
pants.
So there's like their whole like there's that evaluation period right
Totally.
when he comes on screen. You're like, I don't know if Wesley would approve of this guy. Like,
No,
is he some kind of artist guy? Is this guy, is he a musician? Like, you want to know, is he going to be able to take
Beverly
care?
Beverly is a professional woman at the
Yeah.
top of her field. She's
Yes.
she's smart. She saves lives. She got
And the
ousted,
captain is
came back.
is the only person we've seen so far as a qualified,
Right. We've seen her
potential
fall in love
suitor.
with a terrorist, but that didn't last. And even that was kind of a little weird. No,
Yeah.
we're a little snooty with Beverly. We're like, you better be
Yeah.
good, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what ship do you captain, bro? Like, I want to know,
Yeah.
what's your credentials, man? I don't know. How many peace treaties have you negotiated?
Yep.
I need to know. But so right away, I'm like, this guy has looked like a little rock star. He's got his hair kind of fluffed out, and this guy looks like a smooth talker too. Another thing that I'm like, is this guy a smooth talker? Or is he actually like? 'Cause she's a science based person, so you would
Mm.
expect the conversation for them to get along. He has to be some level of intellect, right? And that would be something I'm looking for too, in somebody that she would be interested in, somebody who kind of portrays a level of intellect.
Boy, if you think that
But
this guy might not be good enough for her, you just wait. There's
uh
definitely an
oh,
episode where
uh
she
oh,
you may not approve of her other sexual
uh oh,
exploits. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, he actually passed the test because initially, he started to show that he was. They felt like they were in love, and that was the other thing that was hard for me to like. There was a level there of the behavior that Beverly had that reminded me of somebody who is really young. So, like the first time you fall in love type
Mhm.
feelings, right? And we've all kind of had those moments where you just can't stop thinking about somebody, or you might write letters, or you'll write poems. Like this, there's this level of first love feelings that you don't know how to fully express. So it comes out and expresses itself in multiple ways. But as you get older and mature, the level of relationships become, in my opinion, more complex, and they become more like the relationship we see with her and Picard, in my opinion, which is like this subtle game of push and pull and flirt and non-flirt, and it's like a more of a game of chess than how you are as a young person playing checkers. Like, let me
Mhm.
jump on you. Uh, And so when I saw her going through the whole feelings and stuff, I wish they played it more on the mature side, because her line was, she said, I know him better than I know anyone else in my life, or anyone else I've
Yeah,
ever known in my life.
what? I was like,
Like,
whoa, what
whoa,
are you talking about? You were
whoa.
married for
First of
like
all,
10 years.
yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. That's the part I was like, did we forget Jack Crusher? Like, did we forget this marriage, the kid you guys have? You started with the letter that you have from this. So, like, obviously, that was a functioning, good relationship where you guys were in love, and
Yep.
he must have passed away early, and it just didn't work out, right? Um, it didn't work out in that to in the final rolling out of it.
Yeah.
But to say that this man more than anybody after that,
That was
after you
nuts.
after the time we've seen with you and Picard for the last 4 or 5 seasons, it felt too much to me. It felt like a ridiculous statement, and that sounded like something a young teenager would say. Like, I love this person more than anybody I've ever loved in my life. Like, all right, yeah, okay, this is your first boyfriend or girlfriend. It's like,
Yeah. I'm
you
looking
know,
up this writer, Michel, and this is the only Star Trek episode he's ever written. So I'm wondering if he's just not aware, like he's just not up on his Star Trek lore. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
because anybody that knows she was married for 10 years wouldn't have added that line in. But I'm surprised it still got through the many filters that it needs to go through. Or maybe they're like, we need to convince people that they're madly in love or this story doesn't work. And I mean, it's great to just start off with them already in love. That way they don't have to convince us. But there's no way they're going to convince us that she knows him better than she's ever known any guy. That's not going to happen. There's no way.
It was too much. It was too much hyperbole. I get that they were making it look like she was smitten. She kept, she acted nervous when she got caught in the beauty salon or whatever. There was that kind of nervousness or whatever. I get it. You're smitten. You're head over heels. You're in love. And sure, love can blind you to some things, and you don't see certain characteristics in people because you're just, over the top with them. But I just think that to say that particular line after you've been married, had a kid, it's just not too much. Who knows? And she mentioned the guy that she dated before, the first person she ever fell in love with at 8 years old or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, all in her head mostly.
All in her head mostly. But still, that's the kind of statement I would get from that mind, the 11, 8-year-old mind that just is, this is the most in love I've ever been in my life, or the most I know anybody. Not Dr. Beverly Crusher, who has this resume of being the top qualified Federation doctor and all of this history she has. For her to have that kind of a naivety in the statement, it's like the dude's pregnant. You don't even know.
And why? And another thing, when he says, "Oh, I didn't tell you. You didn't tell me you were a single entity." Right. And I'm like, okay, that's a good argument if you're arguing in a debate. But when you're being real with two humans, with an actual conversation between people that care about each other, you got to know that you should have fucking said that. Because the truth is, that's the norm for all these humanoids. They don't know that there's people that have things living inside of them. So yes, you could win a little gotcha debate there, but that's not what this is about. This is about two people that care about each other. Of course he should have told her. He should have been like, "Oh, hey, by the way, we have this thing inside of me. You don't actually, my personality is all this slug," at some point. And I feel like they'd have to do a physical. I mean, I get it. They didn't want the transporter. I think the reason maybe the reason he didn't want to do the transporter was just because he didn't want to be found out, because then you're transporting two aliens, or maybe because since they don't know about the thing in his belly, that it wouldn't transport the thing. But I'm not 100% sure why he didn't want the transporter otherwise.
Yeah, and that's where there's other flaws in the story. Exactly right there. The problem I have with this is you have a Federation ambassador. He's wearing a delta on his lapel of his clothing. So he's obviously been screened, monitored. He's part of the Federation. He's part of Starfleet. So, and we know he's a negotiator for these treaties and has been for, in this case, at least one generation, right? So that would automatically imply some years to his age, because 30 years ago he negotiated a treaty. You couldn't have done that when you were 12. So, you got to be at least 60 something. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a certain level. So my point is, all of this would be exposed during his clearance and training with Starfleet. Him being a Trill, him, because it's literally his skill set. His skill set is remembering these conversations that happened, being present at the negotiations of things that happened years ago. And because of that, we are sending you as our emissary, as our ambassador, as our representative, so that you can negotiate, because we know that you're present.
Yeah.
So it's your skill set is your identity, which is being a Trill. Right? It has to be.
And taking that a bit further, that may have been the line that I was most bothered by. And, well, maybe we should take our break. I'll tell you the line that I was most bothered by on those lines. I'm so sorry, but it's just because we gotta, if you could see the clock right now, it's evident. So we will be right back on the 7th rule.